Chapter 1. Good. 4. Nothing 7th Miss. 1. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 1. Good. 4. Nothing 7th Miss. 1. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations pain spread throughout her body, and the intense pain pulled Shen Yanxiao out of the darkness. As she struggled to open her aching eyes, a faint light and an ear-piercing voice echoed in her ears. She can't blame others for her incompetence. Luck was on her side this time, and she was rescued, but there won't be such good luck next time. A trash should know their place. She's fully aware that she's garbage, yet she still acted recklessly and brought dishonor upon our family. A man and a woman's voice hovered around Shen Yanxiao's ears. Who did those two bastards think they were to call her trash? Furthermore, when did those two, who were obviously sick of living, appeared in the organization? Shen Yanxiao disregarded the pain that she felt, opened her eyes, and looked at the source of the voices. A young gentleman and a young lady around the age of 14 to 15 stood beside her bed with their arms crossed. Both of their appearances were rather outstanding in other than their similar manner of dressing. They almost looked identical. When the pair of them noticed the person on the bed had regained consciousness, they did not even feel guilty when they realized that the said person had heard what they said. Instead, both of them revealed similar mocking expressions that held contempt and disdain, as if what they saw in front of them was a piece of trash. Oh! Our vermilion bird family's good. 4. Nothing 7th Miss is finally awake, and not dead after suffering such serious injuries. It must have been a blessing from our ancestors. The beautiful young lady glanced at Shen Yanxiao with despise as she sat up. She did not even bother to conceal her hatred for Shen Yanxiao. The handsome young man sneered and threw a glance at the ashen-faced Shen Yanxiao and said, "Idiot, I'm sure you know what to say when grandfather questions you, right? If you dare to make any nonsensical remarks, I can guarantee that you'll be lying on this bed for the rest of your life." The undisguised hostility, despise, threat, and ridicule did not anger the person that sat on the bed. Right then, Shen Yanxiao did not care for what those two bastards said, as unfamiliar yet familiar scenes flooded her mind. Memories that did not belong to her had engulfed and overwhelmed her, and if she had not forcefully resisted the giddiness, she would have probably lost consciousness again. Those memories belonged to someone else, a child who babbled her first words until she grew up to become a 13-year-old minor. The wave of disjointed scenes from the little girl's 13 years of life opened a new and unfamiliar world for Shen Yanxiao. It was a world that was entirely different from the modern society that she knew. It was a fusion of ancient Eastern and Western cultures with mysterious battle aura and mystical magic. Not only that, but gigantic dragons that were supposed to only exist in fictional stories also appeared in that bizarre world. As a thief goddess from the 20th century, Shen Yanxiao could not believe that she had been miraculously reincarnated into a little girl's body when she should have been dead. She also did not know whether to laugh or to cry because the little girl's name was the same as hers, Shen Yanxiao. She was currently in a country called the Longxian Empire, located within the Brilliance continent. The original owner of her body belonged to one of the 5 great families in Longxian Empire, the 7th Miss of Vermilion Bird family. Under normal circumstances, she should have been the apple of everyone's eye. However, according to what those two bastards had said previously, the owner of that body was like garbage to them, and she seemed to have lived up to that title. Chapter 2. Good. 4. Nothing 7th Miss. 2. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 2. Good. 4. Nothing 7th Miss. 2. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. She was born to the Vermilion Bird family, and yet she could not train in either battle aura or magic. Her strength was not only pitifully weak, but she was not very bright too. She was already 13 years old, but her IQ was like a 4-year-old child, and that was why she was called the Vermilion Bird family's disgrace, the good. 4. Nothing 7th Miss. The two that stood before her were also the Vermilion Bird family's disciples, but they were completely different from that so-called trash. They were a pair of twins, and both of them excelled in battle aura and magic respectively. They were also regarded as the coming future stars of the Vermilion Bird family. Other than the daily practices to advance their battle aura and magic skills, their greatest hobby was to bully that trash. The reason Shen Yanxiao was bedridden and had a body riddled with scars was all thanks to that pair of twin brother and sister. They took advantage of Shen Yanxiao's lack of intelligence and incited her to infiltrate into the dungeon that was used to imprison magical beasts. As a result, she was injured by those magical beasts and would have probably lost her life too if not for the dungeon guards who noticed that something was amiss. After she had absorbed all the memories that belonged to another person, Shen Yanxiao finally had the time to deal with the two bastard twins. It was evident that they were worried that their grandfather, the Vermilion Bird family's head, would investigate the dungeon incident. So they decided to threaten her so that she would not expose them. They were completely oblivious to the fact that her usually silly stare was replaced by a sharp gaze. "You had better be obedient and not make us unhappy. Otherwise, I'm sure you know what will happen." Shen Jie curled her lips. As she looked at that nominal idiotic little sister of hers, she thought about how she would not even bother to speak to that little idiot if she was not worried about how the dungeon incident would implicate her. Shen Yanxiao quirked her brows, and immediately retracted her sharp gaze to replace it with a somewhat slow-witted appearance. She blinked her eyes as she looked at Shen Jie and nodded shyly. "Sis, I've already said that this idiot doesn't know anything, and even if she exposes us, grandfather would never believe an idiot. Why are you wasting your breath with all this nonsense?" The younger brother, Shen Jie, snorted impatiently. Shen Jie did not answer her younger brother. She observed Shen Yanxiao and the scars on her body. When she was satisfied that the younger girl would obey her, she relaxed a little and led her brother out of the room. As for Shen Yanxiao's injuries, what did that have to do with them? Even if she had died in the dungeon, it was only one less trash to care for in the family. The twins would not even speak to her if they were not afraid that their grandfather would find out about their involvement in the incident. After the twins left the room, the timid Shen Yanxiao suddenly had a change in her personality and jumped down the bed. Ednel.co, c. The movement pulled the wound on her waist, and she clenched her teeth in pain. She then checked the injuries on her newly possessed body and inwardly sneered. Since the heavens gave her another chance at living, she decided to utilize her new identity to continue living. However, from the looks of things, Shen Yanxiao knew that many troubles followed the previous owner of her body. If she wanted to get on with her life, she could not continue with Shen Yanxiao's former lifestyle. Trash. Idiot. She had never associated herself with those two words. Chapter 3. Good.4. Nothing 7th Miss. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Good.4. Nothing 7th Miss. 3. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. Shen Yanxiao's new set of memories showed her that the father of her body's previous owner was the youngest son of the Vermilion Bird family's head. However, during the former Shen Yanxiao's 1-month-old birthday, her parents were murdered when they were outside of the family home, and she was the only one who survived the ordeal. Even though everyone in the Vermilion Bird family disliked her, her grandfather, Shen Feng, who was also the current family head, had tasked someone to take care of Shen Yanxiao's daily necessities out of consideration and love for his youngest son. However, that was all that he had done. For a massive family like theirs, a trash who was incapable of using battle aura or magic was simply of no value to them. Even her simple existence was a disgrace to the Vermilion Bird family. She also did not have the right to participate in the family banquet that was held once a year. This time round, Shen Yanxiao probably would have had her skin peeled off, or worse, killed, for the crime of trespassing into the dungeon. If it were not for her father, Shen Feng would not even want to acknowledge his granddaughter. In summary, Shen Yanxiao truly did not have any support that she could rely on. It seems like I'm in an unfavorable situation. Shen Yanxiao smiled and sat on the chair as she analyzed her current circumstances. A so-called trash without any support, this was probably the lowest point in her life. However, it's not the worst of situations. An extremely magnetic voice suddenly echoed in Shen Yanxiao's ears. She was distracted for a moment before she stood up hastily, and cautiously surveyed her surroundings. Although her body did not have any strength, Shen Yanxiao's previous incarnation was a thief goddess that shocked the entire world. No presence could escape her radar, but she did not detect the slightest presence within the large room. Where did that voice come from then? Since you dared to speak, why don't you dare to appear? Shen Yanxiao narrowed her eyes and continued to survey her surroundings. Appear. That voice echoed once again, and it seemed like it carried a trace of cold intent. Girl, there's no need to continue searching. I'm not around you but within you. Within her. Shen Yanxiao stared ahead blankly. I originally thought that you would be a muddlehead your whole life, but unexpectedly, you became clever all of a sudden. Paradigms change over time, and it seems like the heavens intend to give both of us an opportunity. The cold-sounding voice whispered in Shen Yanxiao's ears. However, she sensed that the voice did not come from outside, but instead, it came from her mind. Who exactly are you? The concept of rebirth was something that Shen Yanxiao could accept and comprehend, but it was rather hard for her to believe in a voice that floated from nowhere. Human. No one in this world would call me as such. They are more willing to call me a devil. A devil. Shen Yanxiao frowned at that little detail. Girl, why don't we discuss a deal? What kind of deal? Although she was unclear about the other party's identity, Shen Yanxiao understood that the self-proclaimed devil did reside within her. Help me to reappear in the human world, and I'll undo the seal for you, and that will allow you to obtain the strength that you originally possessed. Seal. The more she heard, the more confused she was. Lift the sleeve of your right arm. Shen Yanxiao complied and lifted her sleeves. On her right arm, a palm-sized portion of her skin was darker, and she did not notice that subtle difference when she inspected her new body earlier on. This is a seal. Damn it, what other secrets did the former Shen Yanxiao possess? Chapter 4. Dual Training in Magic and Battle Aura, 1, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Dual Training in Magic and Battle Aura, 1, Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations, this is a 7-star moon seal, and it sealed all of your powers with 7 layers of the seal, thus reducing you to trash that is ridiculed by everyone else. If you're willing to assist me, then I'll help you to undo the seals. As she looked at the imperceptible mark on her arm, Shen Yanxiao pondered over the reliability of that devil's words. Her lips then curled and revealed a wicked smile. Before we continue discussing the content of our deal, shouldn't you show me some sincerity so that I can understand how our future collaboration would look like? Also, how did you get inside my body? In all the lands under the heavens, there were probably only a few that would dare to act like Shen Yanxiao did to haggle with the devil who company existed with her in the body that she reincarnated into. After a moment of silence, the bone-chilling voice verbalized once again. With your current strength, you are not worthy of knowing my name. So, for the time being, you can call me Shio. As for why I'm residing within your body, I will eventually tell you the reason after you've undone the 7 layers of the seal. Right now, you're too insignificant, and it'll bring you impending calamity if you know too much. Shen Yanxiao chuckled. Other than the devil's incomplete name, she did not manage to obtain any additional useful information. With your current attitude, it doesn't seem like you're negotiating. How can I be sure that you won't eliminate me after I've assisted your return to the human world? Strength was something useful and also very important in her situation. However, it was necessary to clear her doubts as she did not wish to set any hidden dangers for herself in the future. As a first Rate thief goddess, she would plan for any potential dangers. After she resolved all the predicted threats, she would then be able to successfully obtain her objective in the last strike. Xiao went silent for a moment before he continued to speak. Killing you would mean killing myself. Right now, I am residing in your body, and if you meet your end, then my soul will also disperse and scatter. That piece of information was pretty useful. Shen Yanxiao beamed and continued to acquire more intel. After you've obtained your freedom, will you be able to eliminate me with ease? I will never kill you. Oh. Why is that so? Shen Yanxiao asked in a cheerful tone, but the sharpness in her eyes was inconsistent with the innocent smile on her face. The moment I decided to reside in your body, I've signed a soul contract with you. Killing you will cause me to lose 9/10 of my soul. Xiao's voice was serene and without any fluctuations. To lose 9/10 of his soul. Shen Yanxiao wanted to applaud and cheer when she heard that news. Even though she did not know why Xiao resided in her body, she was confident that Xiao would never harm her in any situation. It was like what he had said, if he killed her, then that would mean he signed his own death certificate as well. Right now, I'll undo the first layer of your seal, and you'll repossess the ability to train in battle aura and magic. This is my first present to you, my dear partner. In crime. As soon as he said those words, Shen Yanxiao suddenly felt an unbearable pain on her right arm. Like a colossal tide, the acute pain overwhelmed her. Before she could ask for more information, she had lost consciousness once again. When Shen Yanxiao regained awareness, she saw an aged but kind-looking face in front of her. "Seventh Miss, you're awake," the old man said as he smiled amiably. Shen Yanxiao furrowed her brows. As she searched through her memories, she found out that the old man before her was the Vermilion Bird family's physician, Shen Qiu. Chapter 5. Dual Training in Magic and Battle Aura, 2. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 5. Dual Training in Magic and Battle Aura, 2, Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. She was one of Shen Qiu's regular patients, as the twins regularly bullied the previous Shen Yanxiao, and her body was also often riddled with scars. If she had to list out those who were not harsh on Shen Yanxiao, then Shen Qiu's name would be one of them. Uncle Qiu. As she concealed the shrewdness in her eyes, Shen Yanxiao blinked and gazed at Shen Qiu with a blank expression. As he looked at the muddled-headed 7th Miss, Shen Qiu felt helpless, but he managed to maintain a friendly smile. 7th Miss, you're still quite frail, and you should rest well for a few more days. I've brought you your favorite osmanthus cake. As a retainer for the Vermilion Bird family, he was regarded highly by Shen Feng due to his exceptional medical skills. Physician Shen Qiu devoted his life to medicine and did not get married or had any children. He had also taken care of Shen Yanxiao regularly, and due to subtle influences, he had long regarded her as his granddaughter. However, since Shen Feng did not issue an order for him, he could not interfere much even though he had the heart to care for Shen Yanxiao. Shen Yanxiao happily took the osmanthus cake and acted as if the dessert that Shen Qiu gave her was not comparable to the pain on her body. Shen Yanxiao's situation was an unfortunate one. Even though she did not have to worry about daily necessities, everything that she ate and used was the same as those kept for the lowest-ranked servants in the Vermilion Bird family. In addition to the lack of access to luxury food items, she also often had insufficient food during meal times due to Shen Jie and Shen Jiawei, who deliberately made things difficult for her. When he saw the little Miss' radiant appearance, Shen Qiu internally sighed. He knew that Shen Yanxiao would not understand complicated speech due to her low intellect, and so, he spoke without any misgivings. 7th Miss, the head is truly angry this time, and I am incapable of doing anything for you. You should recuperate at ease during this period. No matter what happens, I will stall time for you and prevent any punishments while you are still frail. Shen Yanxiao did not bat an eyelid as she continued to nibble the dessert, but her ears listened attentively to Shincho as he muttered to himself so that she would not miss a single word. The dungeon where the vermilion bird family reared their magical beasts was a restricted area for the children of their generation. Not even Shinjai and Shinjiawei had the right to enter, let alone her. When she trespassed the restricted area, it had stirred Shinfeng's anger, and the twins also mentioned that Shinfeng had wanted to question her. However, she was utterly oblivious to what the previous Shin Yenshao encountered in the dungeon. The inherited memories were extremely disorganized, and she did not have any information other than the darkness that came along with the endless fear. Shin Yenshao knew that Shinfeng was not worried about the dangers that the vermilion bird family's disgrace could have encountered in the dungeon. Instead, he was more concerned about how she blatantly disregarded his rules. Fortunately, Shin Qiu had already intended to stall time for her, and based on his selfless actions, Shin Yenshao had stamped a nice person label on that friendly old man. Shin Qiu continued to sit by Shin Yenshao's bed for a few more moments and spoke of some trivial things to her. In Shin Qiu's mind, the girl was still that pitiful child who only had the intelligence of a 4-year old, and it was pointless to tell her much more. When he was sure that there were no serious issues with Shin Yenshao's health, he then left the room. The instant Shin Qiu left, Shin Yenshao got down from the bed immediately. She was in a rush to examine her body. Before she lost consciousness, she clearly remembered that Xiu had undone the first layer of the seal. He also mentioned that she would be capable of training in both battle aura and magic. Chapter 6. Dual Training in Magic and Battle Aura, 3, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Dual Training in Magic and Battle Aura, 3, Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. A scarlet red mark had appeared on the palm-sized mark of the seal on her right arm. Even though the mark was only 1/4 the size of a pinky nail, it was a representation of the first undone seal. So, I suppose I can train in battle aura or magic now. Xiu didn't make it clear. Even though she did not know anything about Xiu's origins, Shin Yenshao was aware of that devil's strength. Unfortunately, she also did not know a single thing about that world, let alone the training in battle aura or magic. If you prefer, you can train in both. The cold voice that belonged to Xiu echoed once again in her mind. Shin Yenshao raised her brow as she thought about what his words meant. Could it be? What Xiu had said previously did not mean she could train in either of the two paths, but instead, she could train in both. Was that not extremely cool? From the memories of her new body, Shin Yenshao vaguely knew that the people in that world were divided into two categories. Those in the first category had a strong physique with tough tendons, and their dantian could condense battle aura. So, those people were suitable candidates to train in battle aura. As for the people in the second category, they had average physiques but powerful mental energy. They could also utilize their mental energy to control different elements and thus, were the perfect candidates to learn magic. Heavens was impartial and fair. If a person had a strong physique, then they would lack any powerful mental energy. That was why, in hundreds of years, no one in the entire Brilliance continent had the capability to be well-versed in both magic and battle aura. Regardless of battle aura or magic, they still had to train arduously to reach a certain level and to expend time and energy to improve. Aside from the fact that a person who possessed both talents was a heaven-defying existence, just the thought of training in both paths together was simply a pipe dream. You mean, I can train in both magic and battle aura? But I'm already 14 years old, and I know nothing about either of those paths. For me, training in both is a pipe dream. Shin Yenshao felt depressed. In the Brilliance continent, everyone would have chosen their path not long after they were cognitively aware, and that meant she was already 10 years slower than everyone else. It was considered too late for her to start her training in either path, and it was simply a big joke if she thought she could specialize in both. You can do it. Xiu's voice was ice-cold and yet firm. Your physique differs from normal people. In addition to that, you have me to assist you, so all those problems aren't really a problem at all. Shen Yanxiao's face brightened. How could she have forgotten that Xiao was an enigmatic devil? A devil that survived for dozens of years with its soul in someone else's body was definitely not an ordinary character. With the devil's help, all of Shen Yanxiao's previous problems were resolved. She knew that she did not have any support from anyone. If she could not increase her strength quickly, then she would have to continue to act like an idiotic trash, and that was not something that she wished to do. Will you teach me battle aura and magic? Shen Yanxiao asked with a smile. As long as you have the ability, I will empty my pockets and teach you everything that I know. This will be my second present for you. Xiao's voice was filled with unlimited possibilities. Even though he spoke with a bone-chilling voice, what he had said had caused her heart to burn with fervor. In that case, I'll offer my best wishes in advance, for a happy partnership with you. Shen Yanxiao's smile was similar to the cat that ate the canary. With the help of the mysterious Xiao and her abilities, she doubted the labels of idiot and trash would stick with her for long. Chapter 7 Vermilion Bird Family 1. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 7 Vermilion Bird Family 1. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. In the 5 days of recuperation period that Shen Qiu managed to get for Shen Yanxiao, other than the usual time for sleep and meals, Xiao trained her for the majority of the time. Inside the tightly shut room, Shen Yanxiao was dressed in an unlined garment while she sat crossed-legged on the bed. Her body was drenched in sweat, and beads of perspiration were also visible all over her flushed face. After only 5 days, your battle aura has risen to the 4th rank while your magic is at 3rd rank. Since you're a human, I guess this is considered barely passable. Xiao's voice was still as ice-cold as before. Shen Jia started her training in magic from a young age, and she had only managed to reach the 5th rank then, while Shen Jiu's battle aura was only at the 4th rank. With their achievements, this had made Shen Feng satisfied. However, Shen Yanxiao only needed 5 days to ascend from the level of a lowly trash to her then standard. Everyone would be shocked if they were to learn about the speed of her training. To be able to train in both magic and battle aura, and to reach the 4th rank and the 3rd rank respectively, what kind of heaven-defying existence was she? For the common masses, they would have been crowned a prodigy if they could reach Shen Yanxiao's level in either path within 5 years, let alone to train in both magic and battle aura in just 5 days. However, when Xiao described the extraordinary speed, he told her that it was only barely a pass. Shen Yanxiao did not have much understanding about the magic and battle aura ranks of that world. So, when she heard Xiao's remark of barely a pass, she naturally assumed that her training speed was only average, and in turn, she was not amazed by it. Let's stop for today. I have another tough battle to fight tomorrow. As she exhaled, Shen Yanxiao collapsed on the bed. The after effects of training to her extreme limits resulted in an extreme overdraft of her physical strength and mental energy. She did not know what it was like for other people, but it was too strenuous for her even to lift her fingers. She was supposed to meet with the family head of the Vermilion Bird family, Shen Feng, the next day. Most likely, he wouldn't let her off that easily for that incident when she trespassed the restricted area. After all, she was only a helpless idiot and a so-called trash that relied on the Vermilion Bird family's pity for survival. Shen Feng had no reason to be lenient with his punishment. With her then plight and ability, she thought that it was not a sensible time for her to reveal her bargaining chip. Even though Shen Feng would start to take notice of her existence, her peers from the same generation would not be happy to see the emergence of another competitor. Which third generation of the Vermilion Bird family did not wish to be Shen Feng's favorite and to increase their chance to inherit the family's fortune? Everyone thought that Shen Yanxiao was an idiot and trash, and therefore she was not on anyone's radar. Other than her usual involvement as the target of Shen Jia and her brother's mean hobby, Shen Yanxiao's then plight was not considered as a dangerous one. However, once she exposed her new-found strength and allowed them to know that she possessed the heaven-defying ability to train in both magic and battle aura, it was likely that they would have no choice but to deal with her. It was also unfortunate that Shen Yanxiao's parents had passed away, and so, she did not have any powerful support in the family. When a candidate contested for the position of the family head, those who could support their own children would interfere in the contest to root for the candidate of their choice. Although Shen Yanxiao did not understand how the ranks in magic and battle aura worked, she knew all too well about the dark side of human nature from experience. Chapter 8 Vermilion Bird Family, 2, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Vermilion Bird Family, 2, Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. She knew that there were times when one should conceal one's strength and bide one's time. However, for one to act foolishly was another matter altogether, and she did not wish to become Shen Jie and Shen Jiu's sacrificial lamb when she met with Shen Feng the next day. As she pondered about the problem that she would be confronted with at the imminent meeting, Shen Yanxiao narrowed her eyes, and a sly smile curled on her lips. An idiot would also have advantages as an idiot. If the twins allowed Shen Yanxiao to realize just how low her status was, then her understanding of that was refreshed once again. It was still very early in the morning when two 17 to 18-year-old servant maids kicked the door to her room open and forcibly lifted her from her bed while she was still asleep without the slightest hint of respect. It was as if she wasn't the seventh miss, but the lowest-ranked servant in the family. She's already so old, but she still needs someone else to help her to wash and dress, acting like she's really a miss of the family. The servant maid with an exceptionally unkind face roughly stripped Shen Yanxiao off her unlined garment. Without a hint of tenderness and with an expression of extreme dissatisfaction on her face, she manhandled her into a set of clothes that were, at least, considered clean. If the Lord did not want to meet with her today, who would want to come and wait on her for no reason at all? Sometimes, I wonder about what the Lord was thinking when he decided to leave this idiot here in the estate. All she ever did was to bring shame to our Vermilion Bird family. Another servant maid tugged on Shen Yanxiao's hair and casually brushed it. It was a stretch to say that they were there to help her dress, and it was probably more accurate to say that they were there to torture her. I know, right, and this is simply a waste of provisions. She had even caused such huge trouble this time, and I think that the Lord will not let her off so easily this time. It's better to get rid of such a disgrace as soon as possible. Did you know that the outsiders are all secretly treating this idiot as a joke, and there's no lack of mocking toward our estate? The two servant maids grumbled incessantly as if they had no intention to stop. Other than the family head, Shen Feng, who cared about the bloodline that Shen Yanxiao possessed, everyone else in the Vermilion Bird family regarded her existence as a burden. They also wished for the idiot to meet an early end so that she could no longer taint the Vermilion Bird family's sacred and inviolable position in the empire. Words that were hard to digest entered Shen Yanxiao's ears in an endless stream. There was no change on the 14-year-old's face as she blinked her bright eyes in confusion and looked at the two disrespectful servant maids as if she did not understand a word of what they had said. After a few long torturous moments, Shen Yanxiao was finally dressed. The two servant maids immediately grabbed her and walked her toward the Vermilion Bird family's main house. Shen Yanxiao allowed both of them to pull her clothes as they whisked her along, and she had no intention to resist. However, a crafty glint streaked across her confused eyes. When they reached the entrance of the main house, the two servant maids immediately turned without looking back as they handed her over to the guard at the door. None of them noticed the two palm-sized pouches that were shifted to a certain little girl's sleeves the instant the two servant maids turned to leave. Shen Yanxiao quietly stuffed her first income at that whirled into her bosom as she silently followed the guard with a taut expression into the main house. As the entrance gates came down to shut after she stepped inside, two panicked shouts of "Where's my purse?" were heard before it was blocked off when the gates were shut entirely. Chapter 9 Vermilion Bird Family, 3, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Vermilion Bird Family, 3. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. Total silence enveloped the main house. Shenfeng, who was over 60 years old and had a pair of eyes that was similar to a torch, sat on the chair that faced the entrance in an imposing manner. His silvery hair did not reveal the slightest sign of old age, but instead, it exuded an incorporeal pressure. The second-generation disciples of the Vermilion Bird family sat rigidly at both sides of the house. Even though most of them were already over 40 years of age and every single one of them was a giant among men, they did not dare to act rashly in front of Shenfeng. Behind them were the third-generation disciples of the Vermilion Bird family, and all of them had an air of youthful arrogance on their energetic faces. All of them were well-known figures among the family members, and they had earned the rights to stand in the main house. As for the disciples with weaker strength, Shenfeng had moved them to another branch of the family to survive on their own. At that time, Shenjie and Shenjiawei stood behind a middle-aged man as they quietly looked up to stare at Shen Yanxiao when she walked through the entrance. Everyone's gaze fell on the little girl who stood in front of Shenfeng in the enormous main house. They stared at her unappealing appearance, and most of them thought about how ugly she looked when compared to the other third-generation disciples of Vermilion Bird family who had outstanding looks. She seemed confused and ignorant, and it was as if her petite figure could not even withstand a single strike. It was hard to imagine that such an ordinary and weak girl was a part of the Vermilion Bird family. Not long after Shen Yanxiao was born, the second-generation disciples of the Vermilion Bird family felt nothing but contempt and scorn for the little girl because of how different she looked from her parents and the family's beauty standards. Shen Yanxiao's father was Shen Yu, the youngest master of the Vermilion Bird family. He was extremely handsome, with a jade-like carved appearance, and he exuded so much natural charm and elegance that ladies would simply topple over him. He also had outstanding achievements in magic and had an extreme fondness for literary pursuits. When he was alive, he was in a totally different league than the other disciples of the Vermilion Bird family, which possessed a galaxy of talents, and he was well-loved by Shenfeng too. As for Shen Yu's wife, she was Wanya, the #1 beauty in the Longxian Empire. No words could accurately describe her beauty, and before she was married to Shen Yu, many aristocrats scrambled for her attention. There were also those who would spend a fortune just to see one smile of hers. Even if the daughter of such a golden couple did not have an appearance that amazed the world, it was quite impossible for her to be the common-looking ugly duckling that was in front of them that they could not locate if thrown in a sea of people. There were many private discussions within the Vermilion Bird family about Shen Yanxiao's background. However, since Shenfeng had never once expressed his attitude toward that matter, they could only whisper in secret. After all, Shenfeng was the one who wielded power in the Vermilion Bird family. At that moment, Shenfeng was seated high above as his sharp gaze locked onto his granddaughter, who stood in front of him, and he wore no emotion on his expression at all. His knife-like sharp gaze observed the granddaughter that he had not seen for a long time, and then he slightly frowned. When they saw Shenfeng's furrowed brows, the rest of the Vermilion Bird family disciples snickered discreetly. It was evident that even though Shenfeng had acknowledged Shen Yanxiao's identity, he did not particularly like that stain of the family. Everyone quietly waited for Shenfeng to speak as the entire main house was enveloped in complete silence. Shenfeng's gaze shifted from Shen Yanxiao and said, "Shen Yanxiao, you have trespassed the restricted area a few days ago and caused a huge problem for everyone else. Do you concede to your crimes?" Shenfeng's voice was deep and heavy as he made a statement instead of a question for her. Shen Yanxiao blinked her huge eyes and did not reveal the slightest emotion as she looked at her grandfather. Chapter 10. Placing Righteousness Before Family, 1. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 10. Placing Righteousness Before Family, 1. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations, Shenling. Shenfeng called out. "Here." A 40-year-old middle-aged man who sat beneath him stood up and bowed respectfully. You were in charge of the arrangements in the dungeon. Recount the happenings of that day. Shen Feng's stern gaze swept across Shen Ling, and the tenderness that a father should have had for their child was nowhere to be seen in his wise and far-sighted gaze. Instead, there was only the imposing aura of someone who was at the top of the hierarchy. Shen Ling smiled inwardly in bitterness. He was Shen Feng's fourth son, and excluding Shen Yu who passed away, he was the youngest among the second-generation family members. However, when compared to Shen Yu, who was a master of pen and sword, he seemed much more mediocre, and he was also not favored by Shen Feng. The dungeon incident happened to be within the scope of his responsibility. Reporting back to the family head. I left the estate due to some important matters that day and was not present when the incident occurred. The ones responsible for the dungeon that day were 3 of my subordinates. After I returned to the estate, I was notified that someone had intruded into the dungeon. Shen Ling wiped his cold sweat discreetly. Even though to trespass the dungeon was a serious crime, the real problem was the magical beast that was imprisoned in the dungeon that day. It was a precious beast that the Vermilion Bird family had sacrificed hundreds of their elites to capture. Other than Shen Feng, only Shen Ling knew precisely what had happened in the dungeon that fateful day. The reason Shen Feng had gathered everyone there to question Shen Yanshao was not merely because of a simple matter of someone trespassing the dungeon. What truly alarmed Shen Feng was something that everyone in the Vermilion Bird family did not expect, not even in their wildest dreams. Are those guards present here today? Shen Feng questioned. Everyone in the main house was struck dumb by Shen Feng's question. It was supposed to be a straightforward and clear-cut incident. That day, they discovered a passed-out Shen Yanshao in the dungeon, and that was a confirmed fact. Everyone expected Shen Feng to pass his order for her punishment. However, it looked like Shen Feng wanted to get to the bottom of the story and there was something wrong with his behavior. Everyone had an inkling that whatever mistake that Shen Yanshao had committed that day was probably not as simple as trespassing the restricted area. At that very moment, Shen Jie and Shen Zhou's complexion turned deathly white as they hadn't expected Shen Feng to pursue the matter. That day, before they deceived Shen Yanshao to enter the dungeon, they came up with an excuse to lure the 3 guards from their posts, and thus gave the idiot a chance to enter the dungeon. Why would Shen Feng want to interrogate those 3 guards then? With their grandfather's wisdom, he would probably have guessed that they were the mastermind behind that incident even before the 3 guards were to expose them. Shen Jie and Shen Zhou wanted to cry. Never in their wildest dreams would they expect that a small matter of trespassing the dungeon would be of high importance to Shen Feng. They assumed that they were in the clear after they threatened Shen Yanshao to keep her mouth shut. Who would have expected Shen Feng to interfere in that matter? The complacence and arrogance on both of their faces instantly disappeared, and what remained was panic and fear in their eyes. Shen Yu, the middle-aged man who sat in front of Shen Jie and Shen Zhou, which was also their father, had faintly sensed the uneasiness from his children. His brows furrowed, but he did not say anything. The 3 guards, who were in charge of guarding the dungeon that day, were brought into the main house. They respectfully knelt before Shen Feng and waited for his interrogation.